Well, it means a lot for me to be here today. I always wondered what would happen when Colonel Park passed away. He's a big person for me, and I really appreciate the chance to talk about Colonel Park. I never called him Dr. Park. I hope that's okay. Is that okay, Unhi? Yes. Okay. So Mike Smith was my first Senate director. He sent me down to New York to be in the New Hope Singers, and I signed up for the New Hope Singers, and I didn't realize, but I was signing up for 3 years of warfare. Mike, you described it. Mike Leone, you described it. We were traveling with Father from Carnegie Hall until Washington Monument, and it never stopped. And as soon as it stopped, we had the celebration of life. And it was like, for me, it was like war. It was constant spiritual warfare. Those of you who were at Madison Square Garden remember the atmosphere there, right? You could feel the confrontation in the air. And everywhere where Father was everywhere where Father was, it was like that. For me, it was like that. It was really challenging to stick with those events and the fundraising and the witnessing for 3 years. But the reason it worked, I really believe, it was Colonel Park. Colonel Park was a commander, right? He was in the military. That's where he got his mojo, I guess. And Father was with us. We traveled with Father. I remember, Mike Leone, you were part of the entourage, right, for the whole time, and we were following right behind and fundraising and witnessing along the way, and it was exhausting. But the reason it worked is because Colonel Park, like everyone has said, he understood us. He was a connection between Father and the Performing Arts Group. The Performing Arts Group was the New Hope Singers, the Korean Folk Ballet, and eventually the Go Row Brass Band. And he was with us. He came backstage and met with us. He met us in the dressing room. He came to where we were staying in bowling alleys or wherever the heck we were, and encouraged us to keep us going. And I'm not kidding you. When we heard first it was like 7 cities, and then it was like 21 cities, and then it was when I heard 32 cities, I was just wobbling. It was warfare because the Christians were after us. The newspapers were after us. Our families were after us. But I really feel like Colonel Park kept us together as an army, as a frigging army. And we were really, really at a high, and he knew all of our names. He knew us personally. He'd come up, and the way he was, he was like a politician. He would personally encourage you along the way, over and over again. And we really got to be with Colonel Park personally during the celebration of life. I guess that was 1974. I think we did 10 cities. We did 2 or 3 nights in each city, and then we had a big workshop, and we traveled with Colonel Park and his wife and Nakyam, his oldest daughter. And we heard his testimony about his conversion experience, which I think hearing that over and over again helped me really understand who he was. I guess you all heard his story, but he made a decision in a foxhole during the Korean War about what he was going to do with his life. That's why I think he endured what he did. Because I am sure he could have been the president of Korea or the the Korean ambassador to the United Nations or something at a very, very high level. But he stayed with the commitment that he made as a young man when his life was spared during the Korean War. And we all were the beneficiaries of being in his presence. And somewhere along the way, Colonel Park I caught his eye or something. And he asked me to be the master of ceremonies during the Day of Hope tour for the pre-programs. I was 20 years old. I'd been in the church for 1 year. And he trusted me, just like he trusted all of you guys here. I mean, I hear these stories. He put us in positions that we weren't qualified for. And the first time I was the MC, standing in front of Father, and at the head table, right, Father and Mother and Colonel Park and all you guys, and was at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City the night before Carnegie Hall. No, that was the night before Madison Square Garden. Yeah, yeah. And I was the. Oh my God. He gave me that opportunity. And no one ever. That changed my sense of what I could do with my life and who I was and what opportunities there were for me. Because Colonel Park kind of tapped me, and so during the performance, the tours, I used to meet with her. He was always, you remember when he always led the dress rehearsals, right? We always had dress rehearsals before every event. On the Celebration of Life tour and Father's events, Colonel Park was really, really serious about a quality performance, and he really understood performing arts. And I would sit down with him during the dress rehearsal, sometimes before, sometimes after, because I was the MC. And whenever I sat down there, it felt like I was sitting down with at the front line of World War III. The tension and the pressure. I don't know if other people had that experience with Colonel Park, but I felt it. He had so much weight on his shoulders during these tours. And sitting down with him, I was just kind of like shaking, even just sitting there. He really impressed me with that kind of burden he was carrying for Father. To be able to be such a generous man to me was really touching. At the end of one of the tours, he met with us in the garage at Belvedere, the New Hope Singers. He knew everybody by name, which is amazing because he had so many things going on. And he said to us, if any of you would like to change your mission, that's the term we always use, right? Please come and tell me, meet with me personally, and we can talk about it. So I was all over, I won't get off this train, baby. I've had enough. I was not ready to hear the announcement on another tour. So I literally followed him up the hill, up to the main house at Belvedere. And I sat down. I was the only one who took him up on that offer. I was the only one. And I sat down with him, me and Colonel Park. At that time, we kind of knew each other. And I said, well, Colonel Park, I'd love to get off this train. This is what I plan on doing with my life. And in order to prepare for that calling, I would like to become a foreign missionary. And I sincerely, I meant that. I wanted to go out and really, really have a frontline spiritual experience in a developing country. I thought that was the best thing for me spiritually. And he listened to my story, and he said, nope, Jim, I think you should go back to college. You remember that time, nobody went to college. We all left college, right? That was unbelievable to me. It was so generous and loving and thoughtful and deep understanding. And I just left that meeting. It totally changed my life. I was 6 months later, I was a student at Columbia University. And I got to go to graduate school at MIT because of Colonel Park. I'm standing here to thank Colonel Park for that beautiful fatherly, brotherly generosity, understanding, compassion, encouragement, trust that he gave me. And luckily, I had a chance towards the end of his life. I met Mike at the hotel in Las Vegas. You and I were there at a speech, the Aria Hotel. Father had a speech. Colonel Park was there. I went up to you and I said, Mike, is Colonel Park here? I gotta thank him. And you walked me up. Do you remember this? Do you remember that? You walked me up to Colonel Park, who was sitting at the head table, and Colonel Park was so happy to see me. He hugged me. We shook hands. We took a nice picture, and I got to say thanks. And that was the last time I saw Colonel Park. And I have his picture on my where our altar is for our pledge service. I have Colonel Park and me at that moment. And the last time I saw him at the Area Hotel in Las Vegas. So thank you for that, Mike. And I thank you for all giving me this chance to, thanks to Colonel Bohe Park, our good brother.